Well, yes, so Kimberly and I, it's been a minute, but we managed to carve out some
Yes.
time to see a movie and now review the movie. And that movie is M. Night Shyamalan's Trap, which, his movies for me are very hit or miss. Most of the time,
Yeah.
I tend to enjoy them, even if they're a little bit off the mark, just because they're interesting and unique and they're trying different stuff. This one was interesting for him for a different reason, in my opinion. And I know, Kim, you probably feel the same way. We'll talk about that. So we saw it today, and it's not an overly long movie. It was maybe a little shy of 2 hours, something like that. I didn't
It,
even look at the
it
runtime.
felt long to me.
Did it? So you felt like it just, well, we did talk about that on the way out about how it maybe could have ended a little bit sooner. I didn't feel like it was like exorbitantly long or anything like that, but
No,
um,
and if it had a different sort of ending sequence, maybe I wouldn't have felt that way because I had mentioned earlier, I just felt like the ending, it just kept going and going and going, and I'm just like, what? And I don't like that. Like I don't mind when things linger, but I want it to linger in a final sort of way, and
yeah,
so I just yeah I felt the length of the movie because I just felt like it lost sight of what it was trying to do towards the end.
I agree. And I think I had mentioned at the very end how I felt like it was like 75% of a good movie, maybe
You
80%
you
ish.
said 80.
Did I
You
say 80?
originally
Okay.
said 80.
We'll stick with 80. We'll stick with 80.
Okay. Because I'm sticking with 80.
So, okay, just to summarize the plot, which I mean, if anybody's seen the trailer here, and I will say I'm going to get into spoilers with this because I don't know that I can really talk about how I feel about it without spoiling some stuff.
Mhm, mhm.
But the basic plot is you've got a father and a daughter at a concert, kind of like a Taylor Swift sort of thing, I would assume. Very popular singer. It seems like a bunch of teenage girls are there, that that kind of stuff. But you see this in the trailer that Josh Hartnett's character is actually a serial killer, the butcher in the Philadelphia area. And the police have figured out that he's going to be there. So they set up a trap, thus the name of the movie, where they have all this law enforcement there to try and ensnare him and not let him leave this place. So the whole movie is kind of a cat and mouse sort of
Yeah.
thing, right? That's sort of the setup. It does eventually leave the arena, which we'll get to that a little bit later and talk about that. But I don't know. Do you
Yeah.
want to just kick off general thoughts about just, I don't
Yeah,
know,
well,
anything like,
and what's interesting is I feel like the comment we both kept making during the movie was, I hope this is not as obvious as it's appearing. That usually in M. Night Shyamalan movies, there's some kind of twist or something you weren't expecting. And there's sort of a twist at the end, but not one that unearths the plot or makes me go, "Oh, I did not see that coming." And so that's where there are little moments where what, because you find out very early on in the film, I mean, because that's why it's in the trailer that this is the
right?
plot and who he is. And so then I like movies that set up like, how am I going to get out? And like Saw movies in a lot of ways for me I enjoy
Yeah.
because it's the puzzle, but they set up the answer to the puzzle very early on in the movie. And we were both like, really? That's, you're just gonna get like, oh, okay, like I guess he's got a spoiler.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. And I'll put the
Yeah,
worst spoiler
I
here.
guess he's
Just,
got to get
yeah.
backstage because that's the only way out.
Yeah.
Is you got to get
I
backstage.
mean, they do drop a lot of, I guess it would be a red herring. A lot of these, like, oh, he's going to do it this way, or no, he's going to get there this way. Like, kind of set up little morsels of things that you think are going to play
Yeah.
out in a way in which they don't actually. But you kind of know the basic thing. But I would say that it's funny. In some ways, this movie's greatest strength is also its greatest weakness to me. And I will preface that by saying that a lot of times with M. Night Shyamalan stuff, I'm like, oh, I kind of get tired of the twist ending. Like, I want something a little bit more straightforward. But I actually think this movie would have been better if it did have a more, I don't know, more measurable twist to it. Like, I thought it
Yes.
was almost too straightforward. Like, because you would think with the trailer being what it is, that clearly there's some piece of this that we're not getting until we actually see the film. But that's not really the case. I mean, it's pretty much this guy is the serial killer, and that's it. Like, there's no anything revealed here. And weirdly, and I get why they did it this way to try and make it as appealing to a wide audience as they can. It's a pretty bloodless movie, really.
Yes. I was
I
thinking about
mean,
that when I was talking about it to Owen because like I got home and Owen's like, "How was the movie?" I was like, "Thank you for being so interested in my life." And I was like, "It was okay." I was like, buddy, it wasn't overly scary or bloody or anything. It might be a movie that you would actually like, he'd probably get bored more than anything. But I don't. I assume it's rated PG-13
I was thinking about that too. I meant to double check. I'm going to check now while you're kind of
because
sharing your
it
thoughts.
it definitely. I don't even know if it's listed as a horror
It's
film
PG-13. Yeah.
because it is very much more a suspense.
It's listed on IMDb as a psychological thriller slash
Okay.
slash crime slash horror. I think the horror is definitely like an ellipses, like kind of horror, but
Yeah.
not really.
Yeah, psychological thriller I would definitely agree with. And what I will say is and you get these little glimpses of this older woman anytime he's like thinking about killing or has hurt somebody or something, and then they get into the whole FBI profile and like clearly like he didn't have a good relationship with his mother and blah blah blah, and you infer that this woman he's seen is this image of his mother, and she's kind of part of it at the end that draws him out and is part like just this image in his head, and they never go deep and explain it, which I'm fine with. I think it would
Right.
have felt far too 90s to like give us the backstory. We don't care. And I think we live in a society now that we accept that people are psycho killers. Like we don't need to know why. We
Well,
just
there's
know
like,
they are.
I mean, I don't watch them, but I know you love like the murder shows and all that kind of stuff,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Like, I mean, so
Oh
like
yeah.
clearly this is like a pervasive thing that people have an interest in and want to see in
Yes.
media
And that's
somehow.
why I don't think you need to explain anything because it is I think there are so many people that are interested in murder that they're they're familiar with it, but my one gripe with that is she monologues this figment in his head monologues towards the end, and to me it got a little too prescriptive, and I'm like now I feel like we do need some sort of backstory here because you gave her so much
Yeah.
face time, and the FBI profiler got a lot of screen time without really getting much from her, and so I felt like this movie wants a prequel.
Yeah, I feel like it definitely is a movie that feels like it can give you a bunch of nuggets and that be sufficient to have that count as character development, which in some ways that kind of works, I guess.
Yes.
Because I guess I would prefer that than a ton of exposition maybe, but I don't
Well,
know.
and an example of how they do that well in the movie is with the feud with the friends. That she's got
Mhm.
something going on with her best friends. We don't know what it is. I don't care. I don't need to know because you get just enough information to know there's a feud. He runs into the mom. Like there's enough going on to get a whole sense of that conflict without going into any details. And that was very smart writing.
Well, and this is a side note, and again, spoilery stuff here, obviously, at this point in the conversation. But I really thought that one of the people he was going to have chained up in his extra house or his area that he has reserved for his criminal activities was going to be connected to that family that he kept running into, that mom, like who did his daughter dirty or did
And
something
the
that.
only I that crossed my mind very briefly, but then when they said like he has killed 10 people and he cuts them up, then I was like, no, it would be far too close to home
Right.
to murder someone. And then that's his big thing in the end is not letting those two lives intersect.
Yeah. Um, but yes, we learn more about him as time goes on, and you start to see little things here and there. Like at one point, they're taking a break between songs at this concert, and they sit down to eat something, and he's folding his napkin perfectly, like he has OCD.
Yes.
Like that's part
He
of
is.
his
There
character.
are a lot of little moments that set that up, which is where, like, remember, I think I said to you, like, maybe he's not the killer, but, and that would have been a crazy twist. But
I would have
all
liked
those
that.
little,
Maybe I don't know if they would have
because
gone that route.
he's a firefighter, so he clearly works in public service. So maybe there is he's been tracking something or somebody, and then, but then all those little things he was doing with straightening things out, I was like, no, that's what killers do. So.
um, so yeah, so that to me was a little bit. I wouldn't say off-putting, but as we got closer to the end of the film, I was thinking, like, is this real? I mean, I guess this is it. Like, I mean, he's the guy.
Yes.
Like, I mean, and it's not that it was disappointing necessarily, but it feels like with M. Night movies, a lot of times there's always that kind of that bait and switch a little bit. But I mean, Knock at the Cabin didn't really have that, I guess. I mean, that was a kind of
It,
straightforward sort of
I mean,
thing.
it did in the sense of I feel like the whole story was. a
Mm.
bait and switch of
Yeah.
how are we going to get out of this situation where, and I will say that the book is, the ending is very different than the
I
movie.
think you told me that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so
So I think there is still a little bit there. My issue, and maybe I am overthinking it or I missed it, but that I wish had been clearer. So they established she added this show. This was not originally part of her tour. She added this show. And then that's how they got tickets. Then you find out, well, they figured out he was going to be there because they find part of a receipt to get tickets to this show in one of his safe houses. But then when the show's over, the lead singer, Lady Raven, goes into the police room and is like really talking to the FBI profiler about like, did we get, like, she's very invested.
yeah,
And it, and then she has a couple comments that it almost makes it seem like that she's in on it, that like she added the show on purpose to some, but then like they would have no way of knowing if he would even buy tickets to her show. Like it was
yeah,
just one of those things where she seemed oddly invested in
yeah,
what was going to be happening.
yeah. That's a good point. And I mean, to dovetail off of that a little bit, how do you feel about? So there's a scene very close to the end where he basically has Lady Raven in a room by herself, and he admits to who he is to basically get out of the place. Right? He's like, "See, here's my person being chained up. You
Mhm.
let me out with my daughter without being checked by the police, or I'm going to push this button, and carbon monoxide gas is going to kill this kid." How did you feel about that? Like, I was thinking in my head, like, he's done all this stuff to like conceal who he is, and I mean, I guess at that point he didn't have much of a choice, like to try
He
and find a way
didn't.
out. But
And I will say, I think the movie did a really good job of that, of backing him into a corner. That
yeah,
was he realized the only way he was getting out of this without being interviewed or checked, which I guess if even if he had been interviewed or checked, what were they checking?
I was about to say, were they gonna? I mean, he could have just like reset his phone, right? And like, oh, I got a new phone. I still haven't set it up on his way out. Like, what are they gonna? Like, what? How do
I
they
mean,
know that it's
anything.
him?
They don't have fingerprints. There's nothing that says even if they talk to you, they're gonna know. They did mention that the guy had a tattoo.
Right.
That
That's
they're
right.
one
They
of
did
the
mention
guys
that.
they think
Yeah.
that was in the area, but still, it's not saying that it's you. It's going to put you on their
I
radar
mean, I guess if they saw the
for
tattoo,
sure.
maybe they would have pulled him aside and taken him in for more questioning. I mean, who knows? I don't know.
Right, but it's not. You're not. So that's where I don't know what solidified in his mind that this was the end. But he gets back into the corner. What I like about that scenario is, and I do think they do a somewhat of a nice job in the performance, like in her songs,
Yeah.
that Lady Raven is very much this protector, or she has the dreamer girl song, like she is someone that does come off as caring about others.
Yeah.
And so when he presents her with this ultimatum of, hey, which is why I didn't mind that she was somewhat invested, because it made sense to me that what would I do? I know they want to find this guy, but if I tell anybody, this guy will die, and I don't want that on my conscience.
Right.
So I liked it. I didn't have a problem with it, especially because he did it in his very good, creepy dad way, which is, I think, my favorite part. Like Josh Hartnett, I mean, I love him in The Faculty and in Halloween H2O.
Of
Like, those are
course.
I love Josh Hartnett movies. And he's like the heartthrob. And he was like, Mr. Teen Magazine. And now he's a psycho killer dad. Like,
Right.
good for you, Josh
Dude,
Hartnett.
I mean,
Way
I
to
will
ride the
say,
wave.
I thought he was well cast. Like, I mean, I thought his acting was
Oh, I
great.
loved it.
Yeah, I thought it was fun. And I mean, he has sort of that creepy, almost like a 50s neighbor vibe in the way that he communicates with people and tries to get information about what the
It's
police are
like that
doing. And
charming thing that he had when he was young, and now they get to use it as a serial killer.
well,
Ted
so
Bundy.
I don't know when you were talking about Lady Raven, it just reminded me of something that I was going to ask you about when we were leaving the theater, but I totally forgot to. So there's that scene where the daughter gets caught up on stage, and between songs, you see Lady Raven go behind the stage, and she's got an inhaler. And so I kept thinking, like, okay, he's going to do something to her inhaler to cause like a scene to get
Mm.
her out. But it was just, I don't know if they were just, I don't know if that was just meant to be there as like a little idiosyncratic thing to show that this person is whatever a human has. It was a
It is.
weird.
I saw it as a very humanizing moment for her, which I think helps us feel more grounded in how she does get invested
Yeah.
in helping these people. I had a brief thought. There's that guy that comes out to sing with her that is like a jerk to everyone.
Right. Yeah.
And again, I think that that was there in some ways to contrast, where like he's a jerk to everyone and she's really nice. Like she's a good person. We are going to feel invested when she's involved, not like why does this celebrity care? But
Yeah.
I did have a brief thought that he was the butcher.
I was thinking that too briefly, but I also thought that's going to be ridiculous, just the way he's behaving. I mean, it just wouldn't have been scary
Yeah,
if he was the guy.
no, it would have gone against the entire thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. So what I will say, I guess, is this: I think that the majority of this movie, so let's say 3/4 to 80% of the movie, is a well structured and well paced cat and mouse, as I said earlier, situation where
Yeah.
basically you're seeing things from the point of view of a murderer who's trying to get away from this trap set up by the police. I think when it moves away from the arena, it starts to crumble a little bit. Not terribly. I mean, like when they get to the house and there's sort of that awkward conversation, that is still intense. I appreciated that part of it.
And I really did love this sequence where she takes the phones. I think she does it in a really smart way.
Yeah.
And because it would have been nice, and I don't know how they would have done it totally, but it would have been nice before he left the arena to see more of that pull between his two lives, because he keeps coming back to that later, that he just did not like. Everything would have been fine if these two lives never intersected, like if his wife had never found out, and la 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 la. Because even when she steals his phone and is who knows doing what, he doesn't break down the door. He doesn't like, he still is very maintained and composed, which to me is even scarier, that he
Right.
doesn't just freak out on her and let the monster loose, in a sense, because who knows what he's capable of if he's that sort of measured.
Well, I mean, you can tell that he's. I mean, you start to see it later in the movie, but he's almost overconfident. I mean, that starts to become sort of the issue,
Yes.
right? Like when he lets her in the house and kind of lets her keep, I guess, drawing this thing out. It's at a certain point he wants her to leave. But one thing I was going to say too before I forget it, I thought that for him being a firefighter and his wife being a teacher, they had an awfully nice house.
So the literal thought I had when he is getting pulled away by the police and they're all
Yeah.
going back in the house, and I was going to say it to you, and I was like, no, I won't ruin the moment, is I feel really bad for how she's going to make those mortgage payments being a fifth grade drama teacher by herself.
Yeah, maybe she's gonna just take a little break, and I don't know. She's gonna
Yeah,
sell the
there's
house and
no
figure
way
something
she's
out.
affording that house on her own as a teacher. And yeah, as a teacher
No,
and a firefighter, they had a real nice
the
house.
funny thing
And
is,
he had extra houses.
I don't know if you know this. I mean, I've told you this before. My dad was a firefighter. My mom was a teacher. So
Oh yeah.
there's a situation there. Yeah, you're like,
Hmm.
so what does that mean?
What does that
Yeah.
mean?
So okay, this thing really starts to fall apart for me after the police show up and he manages to escape the situation, but then he comes back to the house later. And there's this whole conversation with him and his wife, and you realize, again, spoilers, big spoilers, that she has put some kind of drug in this pie that she's offering him to kind of throw him off and basically sedate him and get things. But then the police show up and they just start tasing him one at a time, and he is like kind of unaffected at first, like he's just sort of like hulking out, like oh, and going crazy, and you're just like,
Yeah.
oh man, like you feel like in that
So
situation with her being there. I'm not saying they would have shot first and asked questions later, but like maybe. I don't know. Like just given he's got a butcher cleaver thing and everything.
you
Like
just surrounded an arena of 20,000 people with every single police officer you could find in the state of Pennsylvania. Like, and
I
now
know.
you're going to tease this guy and take him out and let him pick up a bike and let him hug his kid. Like, that that did not track at the end for how much effort they were putting in. So yeah, she drugs him and he's a little woozy, and then he
Yeah.
walks and then he gets tased 3
I
times
thought you were gonna
and
say
then he
I'm
walks
feeling
out
a
of the
little
house
woozy
crying.
here. Like the scream. You know? I was gonna throw
Oh,
that out there, but
yes,
yeah.
I know that. That's
Yeah,
one of my
of
favorite
course,
parts of
yeah.
the movie. And then I love when he's like, "Did you really call the police?" She's like, "You bet your sorry ass I did." He's like, "My mom and dad are gonna be so mad at me." I love Matthew Lillard. He is just the best. The best.
I totally derailed what you were saying. I'm sorry.
That's
What were
fine,
you
because I will take any chance to talk about Scream.
I thought you might appreciate
Um,
that, yeah.
uh, oh yeah, just the fact that he is drugged and tased 3 times, and apparently that doesn't do anything to him.
Right, right.
He's just walking out of the house in his little handcuff outfit.
Well, plus, and I mentioned this when it happened, like he gets out in the front lawn, and his family, who has been shepherded out, they can kind of see him from a distance. But there's a bike that has tipped over, and he's like, "Just give me 1 second." All these cops that have been on this massive manhunt, they let him fix the bike because he's OCD, but he manages, of course, to take out one of the spokes and then use that to pick his lock
Yeah.
a little bit later or whatever. But setting up a potential sequel. But I think my issue there is I don't, and this is one of my larger issues with the movie. I just didn't think it was scary. Like, I don't know if it was supposed to
No.
be. I think it was supposed to be more intense, probably, than actually scary.
Yeah, psychologically thrilling.
But like, I don't see him as a convincing, not convincing. That's not the right word. I'm like a memorable
I,
enough bad guy to warrant a sequel, in my opinion. Like,
no, I
I don't
don't
know.
care.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing.
Like I don't care. Like, and I think always that
Yeah,
is
I've got a
what
dog in
sort
my
of
lap. If that, yeah,
yeah. That's what sort of works about it, and then maybe why it derails is like I actually don't care about him at all as a serial killer.
yeah,
I really only care about him as this dad of two who lives a totally normal life and now has to somehow escape so he doesn't get caught as a serial killer.
yeah.
So the only sequel that would even be worth excuse me seeing would be something where he's trying to live this life again under a different name, but like that's the stepfather. That's like a whole other that's a whole bunch of movies already. So there's really no reason for there to
What
ever
are they
be a
going to
sequel.
call the sequel? Traps. Just put an S on it. Traps or Trap Two. Trap Two would be easy, right? But maybe Traps. I don't know.
Traps.
Well, it's like,
Traps.
what did they call the new Megan? I can't remember the name because it was already M3GAN, right? So, like, if you get to a third Megan, you're not going to be able to call it that, which is, I think you would mention that. But I feel like
Yeah.
they're working on the next one, and I can't remember the type. Was it Megan
Yeah.
2.0 or something like that?
Oh, I think so.
Let's see. Yeah, Megan 2.0 comes out next year. Yeah,
Yeah.
so we'll see.
Yeah, of course.
Anyway, so I was thinking about this too. To try and give people a more measurable sense of whether or not we would recommend the movie, I was thinking we could lean on either go see it in theaters, wait for streaming, or just skip it altogether. I think. I am going to lean toward just wait for streaming. Like, I don't really know that this is one you have to see in a theater. But it was a solidly entertaining time. Like, if you're okay with kind of a toned down thriller psycho movie, then this is okay. But it's also, to me, if it had been rated R, I would have liked it. That's the one thing I think was missing. I think if it had just had one scene with him legit going crazy, not, I mean, not like necessarily a ton of gore, but
And
to
he,
really
he
illustrate.
almost does when he's poking the guy's eyes, but that we don't like he's probably fine.
Yeah, did I was that when I stepped out to use the restroom? Maybe I missed that scene when he poked somebody's eyes. Was that when he was in the car?
No, that was when he got tased and he like tackled one of the police
Oh,
officers who was tasing it and
I
dug
don't
his thumbs into the guy's
I
eyes.
must have missed that part. I don't know, but I mean, like with his cleaver to like see it,
Yes.
if it just one, not to make it like an overly bloody movie, but enough to be disturbing. Like, okay, this guy really is a butcher. Because I mean, you do get glimpses of like the crime scene photos and stuff, but it's not like you know.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
don't know. So I would say wait for it to stream. What would you say?
So I would say see it in theaters, but really more because of the whole being at like a concert aesthetic
Hmm.
was really cool to see on the big screen and to feel in a lot of ways like I was at that concert with him.
Yeah.
And then because it was so big watching it, especially when he is like walking around and kind of in these crowds of people, I felt more of like that sense of anxiety. And I mean, I think the same effect could happen if you have like a larger TV. I think about like my bedroom TV is very small. Like, I don't think this would be enjoyable to watch on that.
Yeah.
But so I would say, I think it's worth seeing in theaters for the entertainment of it if you
Yeah.
know like that you like this kind of movie and you know what you're getting into. But if you are expecting some sort of like, I don't know, jump scare, anything, you won't get it.
Maybe theaters could hire police, like fake police officers, to go in and like flashlight people to like make it like when they're trying to find him in the. That's
So
honestly way
then they would like
overkill.
sue and be like, "You disturbed my movie. I'm
Right,
suing
right.
you."
It wouldn't be good.
No,
So yes, I think this is probably on the spectrum of M. Night Shyamalan movies on the better end. I
it
think,
is. Yes,
um,
yes.
but not to the extent of Signs or The Sixth
Mm-mm.
Sense or the ones that we
No,
kind of talked about when we were just thinking about that while seeing it. So
Would you say that you like this or Knock at the Cabin Door better?
I think I like this better than Knock at the Cabin. Is it Cabin Door or Cabin? I
Oh,
can't remember
it
what it.
might be Cabin,
I don't
but
know.
the book is called something else.
The thing is, I didn't not like Knock at the Cabin. It was borderline absurdist. I don't know, like the way it ends and stuff.
Yes.
Like
Yes,
this
it
just
is.
felt slightly more realistic. I mean, there were definitely some moments where you get taken out of it, but you know, I always tend to get wrapped up in things more when it feels like, okay, this could really happen, which is why the first Halloween I like so much because the first
Oh,
Halloween, for
yeah.
like 99% of that movie, you're like, this is just a psycho dude in a mask. Of course, at the
Yeah.
end, when he starts like getting up after being, everything that happens to him, you start to realize, okay, he's a little bit more than just a normal psycho guy. But that's why I respond to that kind of stuff more, I think, than, I don't know.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah. Not to say that like something supernatural wouldn't be scary. I mean, there's plenty of stuff like that I also
Yeah, no, I
appreciate. But
totally understand. I guess to me, Trap didn't even feel that realistic.
hmm, yeah,
That like they would go through all this. I don't know. I just don't feel like that's what would happen. If they really thought a serial killer was going to be at this concert, I think they would have found a way to track it down more than just let's go to the concert
and literally
with a
screen
bunch of
everybody.
police officers and then ask every man that comes in, "Are you a serial killer?"
It's just, I think the only disappointing thing to me is like, I don't, I still think, and I think you were kind of on the same wavelength. I still think Signs is like the pinnacle of like intense, without having a ton of blood or anything, and intense,
Oh yeah,
just the whole end sequence where the aliens show up and invade the house, but you don't ever really see them clearly.
that
It's just,
scene in the pantry where
yeah,
he puts the knife under and that thing that was
the fingers
always
come
so jump
out. Like,
scary to me. Yes,
yeah,
I've seen it a whole bunch of times. Every time I'm like, "When's it gonna happen? When's it gonna
yeah,
happen?"
I always love the scene where the alien like is they have the footage on the TV and it walks past that birthday party.
Yes, because again, it's not that scary, but it is.
I saw a picture recently. I guess people, I don't know if they were at a preview for this movie or what, but M. Night Shyamalan was there and he was laughing, and all these people were around him holding up a sign of that picture of the alien, and it said, "Thanks for my childhood trauma." But I
Because
mean, like,
it's true.
yeah,
It is
yeah.
the timing of it is beautiful because it goes just 1 second past where you're like, I actually don't think anything's gonna happen. There it is. Like it's perfect. It's so perfect in how it's done.
So I know it's a little while from now, and I'm sure we'll review something between now and then, but don't forget that Nosferatu is coming out. Did you watch the
Is it?
trailer that I sent you for that a while back? I don't know if you watched it. You may not have. It's okay. Robert Eggers, who did The Lighthouse and The Witch and The Northman, it looks really good. Like, it looks like a really great horror movie. So hopefully the actors are all great, like Willem Dafoe. Like, hopefully it ends up
Oh yeah, the
being,
actors are all phenomenal.
yeah. It's hard to imagine remaking a classic. Like, I would be furious if they were like, "Oh, here's a remake of Star Wars." Like, I would not love that. But
I mean, couldn't you technically consider some of these to be
so
remakes?
what,
No,
remakes
I
of
don't
Star
know.
Wars or
I don't know. There's just so many now. Like,
yeah.
really?
I mean, we
There's
maybe are reaching a point of like there are only so many ideas for stories in the world. So I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. But no, I'm excited to see Nosferatu, and I know we talked about watching Abigail. I mean, it's only 8:30. It's not that late. Maybe that's what I'll go upstairs and watch right now.
I think that's what I'm going to watch tonight because I'm not much of an Olympics person, so I'm not really keeping up with that. You hear Leia behind me, seeing somebody walking down
Yeah.
our street or something, probably.
Just peacefully enjoying their evening, and
Maybe it's
yeah,
duck
yeah.
hunting at
Mhm, maybe
maybe.
I've been working on editing some of my horror stage plays a little bit, but I will take a break and
And
maybe
Abigail
watch.
it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
see you've got
Mm-hmm.
Chick-fil-A. I've got Jimmy John's. That's, yeah.
Yep.
Um,
Product placement. Feel free
yeah.
to endorse.
Obviously, these they sponsored this video, obviously.
Oh
So,
yeah,
yeah.
Chick-fil-A
Yeah.
totally pays me
To
in
promote
milkshake.
horror movies.
Yes, to promote horror
Yeah.
movies
Get some
because of
Lord's
all of
chicken
our.
and watch a horror movie.
Yeah,
That's what they're
I
gonna say.
mean
Yeah.
that sounds amazing, actually. But
Um, well, it was fun as always. We
yeah,
will check back in soon with something before Nosferatu, I'm sure. But
yes,
Kim, enjoy
I have
Abigail.
my
Maybe we'll
life
review
back
that.
again, so we
Yeah.
will. We will do that.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back soon.